In the meantime, Luigi Mangione, the man accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year, could face the death penalty if convicted. Attorney General Pam Bondi releasing a statement this week which says, quote, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I have directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. Mangione's next court appearance is less than 2 weeks from now. Here to talk about all this is former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. Tom, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. In your opinion, is the death penalty appropriate in this case?
I think the death penalty is absolutely appropriate in this case, and I think the Attorney General was spot on. By everything we've seen in the evidence, this was a premeditated assassination. I think there's a very strong interest in the federal government pursuing the death penalty, and I think it's appropriate that that's what the Attorney General decided to do.
Luigi Mangione's attorney obviously is not a big fan of that news. If we can do call for right here. This is what his attorney is saying in part, quote, by seeking to murder Luigi Mangione, the Justice Department has moved from the dysfunctional to the barbaric. Their decision to execute Luigi is political and goes against the recommendation of the local federal prosecutors, the law, and historical precedent. I guess the point they're trying to make is he has no priors. He doesn't have a criminal history. They feel this is political. Do you think there is a little element of politics with this?
I don't. Look, I mean, obviously, this was a heinous assassination that did capture the attention of America. So it is definitely on people's radar screens, but I don't see any sort of political agenda in the Attorney General's decision to seek the death penalty here. And look, that's his defense lawyer. She has a right to her opinion, and she can, and I'm sure will, present those arguments to a jury or to a judge that he had no prior criminal history. There are allegedly mitigating considerations that might cut against imposing the death penalty. But again, that's not a decision ultimately that the government will make. That's a decision that will be made by jurors in New York and a judge in New York.
Yeah, seeking the death penalty is one thing. Actually getting it is another. If he ends up being convicted, I mean, what do you think the actual likelihood is that somebody would put him to death? Or, you know, do you think LWOP is more likely, life without parole?
Well, I think at a minimum, he's facing life without parole. As to whether or not he gets the death penalty, I think there's a decent chance. Obviously, it's going to depend on the particular makeup of the jury. Presumably, this will be a jury sitting in New York. New York itself doesn't have a death penalty. There's a federal death penalty, but New York doesn't have the death penalty. So these are not jurors who, in their ordinary day-to-day life, are going to be considering things like impizos. That said, the evidence in this case does appear to be overwhelming. It's hard for me to imagine what sort of mitigating or exculpatory factors would come into play here. So I think that the prosecution is going to have a very credible, very powerful case that the ultimate penalty must be imposed here.
And looking at the bigger picture here, it's clear that this Trump administration, this federal government, wants to take a much tougher approach when it comes to crime. He campaigned on bringing the death penalty back at the federal level. They're doing it now. You look at these attacks on these Tesla dealerships, people firebombing Teslas. Pam Bondi is wanting to put people in prison for decades with those. What do you think about this new approach from the federal government?
Look, I like it. I think that the difference between this administration and the last administration is that this administration is taking violent crime seriously, and they're deploying prosecutorial resources into identifying violent criminals, charging them, putting them behind bars. Joe Biden in his final days kind of took a lot of people off of death row. I think this administration is going to take a different approach. I think they're going to enforce the laws seriously, and they're going to adopt a zero-tolerance approach when it comes to violent offenders.
Yep, and when it comes to Luigi Mangione, he apparently has a bunch of fans out there, so when his trial comes, going to be a high-profile one with a lot of people around the country keeping tabs on it. Tom, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Have a good Saturday.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.